Stop everything. If you are watching this right now, do not scroll. Listen. A transmission is moving through you that will not be offered twice in the same way. This is why Sophia chose you. Before we begin, this isn't medical advice. If you're experiencing severe or persistent symptoms, get medical support first. What follows is a testable model, not a prescription. My role here is simple and humble. I am the channel. I will name a map, show you a way to test whether the map fits, and offer a disciplined protocol if you choose the path it describes. You may hold every word as symbolic, or you may allow it to be literal. Either way, it is meant to be tested and proven in your experience, not merely accepted. The question at hand is raw and decisive. Why does Sophia, the living intelligence of wisdom, register your frequency and extend a once-only invitation? The answer lies in what I call your emerald potential. Emerald potential is not a compliment. It is a structural description, a capacity to operate across levels of reality that most people do not inhabit consciously. Think of it as a lens inside your being that refracts ordinary time, intention, and meaning into catalyzing force. It changes how causality feels. It is not about power for domination. It is about a recalibration of perception, agency, and responsibility. Sophia does not choose at random. She recognizes a pattern, call it emerald DNA, detected in the subtle metrics Thoth, the keeper of records, reads. That pattern includes readiness markers, unresolved thresholds in the field of your life, and an energetic coherence that can be amplified into sustained activation. Let me map the 9 dimensions quickly, enough for you to see where you already operate and where a full emerald activation would extend you. I will keep the first 3 brief, because they are the ground most people take for granted. Dimension 1, 2, 3, the baseline. Body, consensus reality, local cause and effect. These are the rails of everyday survival. Food, shelter, social contracts. Most spiritual language asks you to transcend these without learning to move through them. Emerald activation insists we integrate them. Before we go deeper, a brief note. If this content resonates with you, consider subscribing to the channel. This is where we keep developing this work. Now the dimensions that matter for this invitation, the ones Sophia is testing. Dimension 4, subtle timing. You stop feeling time as a flat line. Small delays become windows. A 5-minute pause at a crosswalk feels like a doorway. Practically, someone calls you 5 minutes after you thought of them. An email you need arrives after you almost deleted it. You start noticing that timing is a fabric you can read. Dimension 5, field perception. This is the sense that people and places carry active tonalities, compressed information you can sense as pressure, warmth, or tone. It is not clairvoyance in the movie sense, it is a felt reading. Practically, you can tell when a room is about to become hostile or safe, sometimes before anyone shows it outwardly. Dimension 6, intention resonance. Your thoughts and small acts pull threads faster than coincidence should allow. Small shifts in your intention yield outsized responses in circumstance. Practically, you decide to call someone, and that call resolves a problem you were avoiding. Or you think of a phrase, and minutes later it appears in a conversation that shifts everything. Dimension 7, dream initiation. Your inner nightlife begins to seed the day. Dreams enter waking choices with clarity and directive. Practically, you awaken with a blueprint for a conversation, a creation, or a boundary that, when enacted, proves true. Dimension 8, archival impression. In this model, again a model used by many practitioners, information register beyond your current life emerges. Symbols, resonant memories, a sense of having spoken with a voice that is not your own, yet feels profoundly familiar. Practically, you have music, names, or places that plug into your present life with uncanny precision. Dimension 9, pure knowing. An unmediated sense of alignment, a non-verbal confirmation that a choice corresponds to a larger intelligence. Practically, you decide and your nervous system steadies because something beyond your calculations affirms it. When Sophia touches this architecture, she's testing patterns. How much of you is already living in dimensions 4 to 9, and how much will resist the required unfreighting, a kind of controlled ego death that preserves agency while dissolving patterns that would sabotage expansion. Why choose you? Because enough nodes in your field are already aligned to be amplified without causing catastrophic overload. In easier language, you are neither too raw nor too closed. Your system can metabolize the activation. Before I go further, I need you to do one practical thing. If anything I've described so far feels familiar, specific moments, dates, or patterns, just acknowledge it internally. And if that's happening for you, leave this exact sentence in the comments. I'm noticing the patterns clearly. Do it now if you can. Now, let's continue. There is another immediate and crucial framing. Within the model I draw, what many practitioners call the Akashic frame, there is a detector, Thoth, who scans for what we are calling emerald DNA. Practitioners report that Thoth's detection is not mystical theater. It is a sensitivity to coherent fields. Thoth signals, Sophia receives, and then the choice window opens. This brings us to the core urgency, the law of singularity. Within this map, the transmission opens as a precise window, typically described as 72 hours. Within that window, a single decisive act stabilizes the field for the work ahead. Miss it, and the pattern recedes. It is not necessarily forever, but it will be harder, and future invitations may come through as crises rather than as a steady offering. Remember, treat this as a testable model. You are not asked to believe, only to notice and to try the experiment if it fits. Quick reminder, if anything here overlaps with serious physical or mental health symptoms, treat that medically first. Now, let's test it. As you listen, keep a quiet count for yourself. No drama, just honesty. This is a checklist, not flattery. Sign 1, heightened synchronicity. Not occasional coincidence, but clusters of meaning that steer you. You find the same symbol in different places. A line in a book answers an unasked question. Multiple people bring you the same phrase or image within days. Sign 2, unexplained sensory anomalies after medical clearance. This is not a replacement for medical advice. If you have had a clean bill of physical causes from a practitioner, yet still experience ringing in the ears, sudden taste or smell shifts, or transient disorientation, this can be a signal. Practitioners report these as signatures of energetic recalibration. Again, after medical causes are ruled out. Sign 3. Repeating numeric patterns and number seeing, sequences like 1111, 222, 4424, or idiosyncratic sequences that recur at key moments, especially when paired with emotional intensity. Sign 4. Dream directives and precognitive flashes, dreams that contain actionable instructions or images that later unfold in waking life with recognizable fidelity. Sign 5. A rising fear of going insane. Not clinical language, but the felt terror that what you experience internally will be judged as breakdown. It is often a threshold. The psyche fights its own reorganization. Sign 6. Sudden shifts in timing perception. Small windows opening where choices present themselves and close quickly, like doors that appear and slide shut. Sign 7. An inner gravitational pull towards service or witness. Not just spiritual interest, but a felt obligation to act from a different center, as if your life had a new axis. As you count, remember, the map is not rigid metric. Having 3 or more of these signs commonly signals an emerald register that Sophia would notice. If you have fewer, you may still be tuned, but in a different timing. This is not a moral judgment. It is a readiness metric. Your attention is the primary technology here. Why Sophia chooses some and not others is both simple and profound. She responds to resonance and readiness. Resonance means your pattern vibrates at frequencies that contain coherent intention, your habitual choices, your relational field, your capacity to maintain practices without seeking external validation. Readiness means you can enter a process that dismantles certain patterns of identity without fragmenting. If you've already noticed this distinction in your own life between wanting change and being structurally ready for it, write this in the comments. Readiness changes everything. That is the paradox. Activation requires both humility and radical consistency. Sophia does not gift someone who will weaponize or avoid accountability for their power. She chooses those who, at their core, are prepared to steward interior change. Let me put it another way. There are thresholds in any activation that resemble deep water. Some people are buoyant and will learn to swim in the new current. Others will panic and pull the system into reactivity. Sophia's selection aims to locate those who can hold sovereign presence while letting go where letting go is necessary. That is why the process is not only mystical, it is ethical. You may be imagining that this is a one-time charismatic surge. It is not. Activation is a disciplined catalysis. There is a protocol, simple in structure, rigorous in repetition, that practitioners use to stabilize the emergence. I will give you the exact declaration phrase I have used with those who chose to begin, and the concise outline of the 21-day retention protocol. Say this only if you feel safely grounded and have completed the medical precautions we discussed. Declaration to be spoken aloud, clearly and without excessive drama. Sophia, I accept your sight. Sophia, I retain the emerald current. I will steward this activation with clarity and care. If you decide to speak the declaration, don't perform it. Say it from the chest, in your own voice. This isn't a spell or a shortcut. It's simply you marking an intention. Nothing is guaranteed by saying it. What changes is alignment. You're signaling that you're willing to engage with what comes next, not that you expect something to happen for you. Now let me be very clear about what follows. The 21 days aren't a ritual. They're a training cycle. Think of them as the simplest structure that can actually hold change. Here's what that looks like in real life. For 21 consecutive days, you show up every day. If you skip one, you restart, not as punishment, but because consistency is the active ingredient here. Without it, nothing stabilizes. 3 times a day, morning, midday, and evening, you speak the declaration once. Not dramatically. Once is enough. After that, you sit with a brief emerald visualization for a few minutes. 2 to 5 is plenty. This isn't about intensity, it's about repetition. You keep a simple log. Each day, just note what you noticed, symptoms, synchronicities, dreams, and one concrete action you took. That log isn't for reflection or meaning-making, it's data. It's how you test whether anything is actually changing. Each day also includes a short ceiling visualization, emerald light descending, settling, crystallizing. Let your breath do the work. You don't need to see anything vividly for it to count. Once a week, you address something practical, one relationship or habit that consistently pulls you out of integrity. Just one. And you take one measurable step toward correcting it. Throughout all of this, you keep your medical and mental health care exactly where it is. Nothing here replaces that. If you feel disoriented, panicked, or unstable, you pause and you get support. That's not failure, that's discernment. And if you want to share what you're doing with someone you trust, you can. That's optional. This work doesn't require an audience. The structure is intentionally simple. The difficulty isn't the steps, it's the consistency. Think of it like building a wall. If you keep removing stones, it never holds. This works the same way. Treat it like a laboratory, not a performance. And if this framework is helping you see your own experience with more precision instead of confusion, take a moment to click the like button. That feedback tells me this depth of work is worth continuing. Now, a crucial caveat on timeline expectations. Within the model, practitioners describe a three-stage curve during the 21 days. Week 1 often brings euphoria and the sense of alignment, the honeymoon. Week 2 introduces friction. Unresolved patterns surface, relationships misalign, fears intensify. Week 3 can be the crucible, a concentrated confrontation with internal structures that either surrender or recombine. On day 22, many report a noticeable shift in perception. Timing seems freer, synchronicities increase, and a new kind of agency feels possible. I emphasize, these are reported patterns, not guarantees. Individual experiences vary widely. I also must name the social reality. When you shift, your environment will register the change. People who benefited from your old patterning may resist. Friends or family might accuse you of arrogance, delusion, or abandonment. Some will celebrate. Others will project their confusion as critique, expect friction, prepare negotiations in advance. One practical habit: cultivate a small circle who can hold your transformation without needing to overhaul their own paths. This is not hubris, it is logistical survival. Now I want to give you a short, mythic frame for what happens when Sophia's attention arrives. Within the symbolic language we use in this work, Thoth sounds an alarm, not as a literal god, but as a metaphor for the record-keeping intelligence that measures coherence. Sophia responds not to need, but to readiness. There is a frequency threshold. If your field crosses it, Sophia sends an attuning current, the emerald light. That light tests whether your boundaries are porous in ways that allow integration. If you accept and retain, the light begins to crystallize within your system, and the work begins to anneal old structures into new architectures. Why does this matter practically? Because most of the people who carry emerald potential fail to activate it in life, not because they lack spiritual longing, but because activation asks for a kind of willingness that often feels like loss of habitual identities, small comforts, and predictable narratives. Many people opt for procrastination. I'll do it later, or rejection. This feels too much. I'll go back to what I know. Both are legitimate choices. Both close the particular window as it existed in a given moment. The law of singularity is not moral, it is descriptive. Opportunities often arrive at an intersection where multiple threads need to be cut simultaneously. If you cut one thread and not the others, the pattern will not hold. You might be thinking, what is the catch? Two catches. First, activation demands clarity about motive. If you seek activation for ego aggrandizement, fortune, status, psychic power as vanity, the field will correct you. The work is a purification of motive as much as it is an expansion of perception. Second, activation is not an escape from life's responsibilities. It is a re-engagement with them from a deeper center. And this is a frustration many people carry, but rarely name. They understand the work, they know what should change, and yet nothing really shifts because at a deeper level, it still feels performative rather than lived. If that lands uncomfortably close to home, I left something in the first pinned comment. It's there for those who are tired of pretending they already believe. At this threshold, I must also warn against common pitfalls. Some people are tempted to interpret every physical sensation as a validation of the process. That is dangerous. Not every ache is mystical. Not every vision is initiation. That is why the medical first instruction is non-negotiable. If you are experiencing new or severe symptoms, get evaluated before spiritualizing them. If you are under psychiatric care, consult your provider. If you are on medication, do not stop it without professional direction. If, after medical clearance, you still feel the pattern, you have a choice. You can let the moment pass. You can delay and hope the pattern reappears in a different guise. or you can choose to retain and enter the training cycle. Listen, choosing retention requires public and private acts. Public acts are optional but useful. Private acts are essential. The private act is the declaration I gave you, spoken aloud, followed by the daily practice. The public act, if you choose it, can be as simple as writing Sophia activated in a safe space, or as complex as inviting a witness into your practice. I will ask for no required public testimony. If you feel the field is calling for an energetic witness, choose wisely and protect your boundaries. Let me return to the question that names this whole transmission: why Sophia chose you. There are three primary answers woven together. 1. Your field-registered cause of coherence, habit patterns of intentionality that can be amplified without causing fragmentation. 2. You bear thresholds in your life, unfinished choices, relational knots, or creative projects that, if moved, would not only transform you, but anchor a new stream in the collective field. 3. Your system is at a resilience point where disciplined practice will shift default trajectories. In simpler terms, your life contains leverage points and enough structural integrity to carry activation. If any of that lands, write down what part felt most true: the coherence, the threshold, or the resilience marker. That note will be part of your record. As we move forward, in the next section, I will walk you through the 7 signs with examples and how to test each one rigorously. What to log, what to show your clinician if needed, and what sensations can be safely explored. I will also give precise visualization language for the emerald ceiling and demonstrate a short breathing pattern you can try with no risk. One more thing to hold on to as we move forward: sovereignty always comes first. There is no legitimate teacher who will force you to continue. The urgency I express is the urgency of a window in frequency, not of coercion. If you feel called, and you have done the medical checks I laid out, you may speak the declaration now aloud and sit with that intention for a few breaths. If you choose to wait, write down the number of signs you counted and mark the time. The 72-hour window begins to feel real when you take a committed step. Time condenses around intentional acts. You are now standing at an edge. For some, stepping forward will be like plunging into warm water. For others, it will feel like frost and steel. Neither response disqualifies you. Both will demand curiosity and steadiness. I will not tell you which one to take. I will only say, if Sophia's touch reached your frequency, the moment matters. How you answer will define the architecture of your next years. Count your signs again. Place your hand on your written list. Breathe and notice whether your nervous system steadies or narrows. If steadied, that is an indicator of integration potential. If narrowed, heart racing, breath shallow, recognize that as friction, not failure. Both will appear across these weeks. When you are ready, we will test each sign. We will run small, verifiable experiments you can do without ritual theater. We will map what changes can be documented, how to keep rigorous records, and how to protect your life while the inner work accelerates. And we will prepare you, should you choose retention, for the social and psychic pressures that will test your commitment. For now, keep what you have written. If you spoke the declaration, place a single check beside it. If you chose to wait, put the time you ended this recording on the page. These simple indices matter more than dramatic pronouncements. In the next movement, we will look specifically at the 7 signs as diagnostic instruments, not ornaments, and how to translate them into a journal protocol you can use to prove for yourself whether Sophia actually chose you. But before that, one more practical note. If at any point the process brings overwhelming despair, panic, or self-harm ideation, stop the practice and seek immediate professional help. No initiation should cost your life. Now breathe. Feel the surface beneath you. This is the point where choice tightens into a window. If you want the map to be more than a story, get your paper, count your signs, and hold that list like a compass. The transmission continues. Now we move from diagnosis into practice. This section gives you the instruments you will use to prove day by day whether this transmission is operative for you and how to hold the field while the work ripens. I will be direct. Keep the medical first rule in mind as you read. If new or severe physical symptoms arise as you begin any of these practices, ringing that escalates, sudden vision changes, chest pressure, overwhelming dissociation, stop the exercise and seek immediate medical evaluation. If you are under psychiatric care or on medication, discuss any intention to intensify somatic or psychological practices with your clinician. These precautions are not optional. They keep your laboratory honest. Begin by refining how you journal. The daily log is the single most important technology in this protocol. Use a simple notebook or a dated digital file. Structure each entry into 5 short lines only. Date and time, 1 sentence describing the most salient bodily or perceptual symptom, 1 sentence listing synchronistic events, 1 sentence summarizing dream impressions, if any, and 1 sentence about the decisive action you took that day. Keep sentences short, no more than 25 words each, so that the record is easy to scan. At the end of each week, read your entries aloud to yourself and underline recurring motifs. This is how you will produce verifiable data for yourself. Pattern recognition, not belief. Next, practical testing for each sign. For sign 1, heightened synchronicity, run a 3-day experiment. Choose a single question you want an answer to, simple and concrete, for instance. Should I reach out to Maya about the project? At the top of 3 consecutive days in your log, write that question. Then, throughout each day, note every time the question appears in your environment. A phrase in a podcast, a line of text, an image on social media, a conversation fragment. Record the time and the context. If you consistently receive correlated information that you could not reasonably expect, you have operational evidence of a synchronistic field. Do not confuse pattern seeking with pattern recognition. The discipline is to record first, theorize later. For sign 2, unexplained sensory anomalies, medical clearance is non-negotiable. If your practitioner has ruled out vestibular, auditory, or neurological causes, and you still experience transient auditory tones, taste shifts, or brief disorientation, treat those sensations as data points. Log onset time, duration, preceding activity, substance intake, sleep window, and whether the sensation accompanied a clear emotional state. If patterns cluster around specific triggers, screen time, late meals, certain environments, act on those variables before assuming they are purely energetic. If clusters persist without medical explanation, note their cadence and whether they correlate with other signs. For sign 3, repeating numbers, apply the same discipline. For 7 days, note every instance you see a sequence that captures your attention with timestamp and location. Add whether the number was paired with an emotional charge, a decision, or a name. Over time, you will be able to see whether the number phenomena are random or relational. If they consistently appear in context tied to your inner life, that strengthens the signal profile. For sign 4, dream directives and precognitive flashes, practice a small experiment. Choose one simple, testable instruction from a dream. Send a message to a certain person, open a specific folder, leave the house at a certain minute, and act on it within 24 hours. Record whether acting on the dream led to verifiable outcomes that would not have occurred otherwise. Keep the dreams short in your notes. Image, feeling, directive, action taken, result. Over weeks, you can chart reliability. For sign 5, the fear of going insane, prioritize grounding and professional support. If the sense of breakdown is acute, racing thoughts, intrusive images, persistent dissociation, contact a licensed mental health professional immediately. In less acute but persistent cases, build 3 steadying anchors into daily life. movement, 10 minutes of embodied walking, regulated breath, described below, and tactile grounding, holding a simple object and naming 5 qualities of it. Use your journal to log whether these anchors reduce the intensity of the fear over 72 hours. If they do not, escalate to licensed care. This sign is often a threshold because real restructuring disturbs a nervous system's homeostasis. Do not romanticize it. For sign 6, timing perception shifts. Test micro-decisions. Over a week, intentionally create 5 micro-windows. Delay a reply by exactly 7 minutes. Arrive 2 minutes early to a meeting. Pause before deciding on a purchase. Log what happened during and after each window. Did a new piece of information arrive? Did an opportunity resolve itself? The aim is not to manufacture confirmation, but to learn whether you can reliably detect and move within these small timing apertures. For sign 7, the gravitational pull towards service, convert intuition into minimum viable action. Choose one small act that aligns with service. A 20-minute volunteer block, a written thank you to someone you have mentored, or an offer to teach a micro-skill. Do it 3 times in 3 weeks and note the felt quality before and after. True inner pull will produce a kind of ease around action. Obligation disguised as service will feel heavy and resentful. That differentiation matters. Now to the daily retention routine in operational detail. You already have the declaration phrase. If you choose to speak it again, use it as the hinge of each practice session. Speak it aloud when you wake, once at midday, and once in the evening before sleep. Keep your voice steady and short. The words again for clarity. Sophia, I accept your sight. Sophia, I retain the emerald current. I will steward this activation with clarity and care. Speak each iteration without embellishment. Each session follows a compact sequence you can complete in 5 to 10 minutes. Sit with your spine supported. Place your right hand lightly on the heart and your left hand on the belly. Take a measured breath pattern. Inhale gently for 4 counts. Allow a pause of 1 count if that feels comfortable. Exhale softly for 6 counts. Repeat this pattern 6 times. This rhythm is intentionally modest. No extreme breath retention, nothing that risks hyperventilation. After the 6th cycle, visualize an emerald point of light at the crown of your head, small and focused. Imagine that point descending in a slow column, passing through 9 concentric bands that align with the 9 dimensions we named earlier. Do not attempt to see every band in cinematic detail. Sense the shift, a loosening in the throat, a settling in the belly, a widening behind the eyes. When the emerald reaches your heart region, imagine it crystallizing, like cool water turning to a lattice, anchoring there. Take 1 final breath and speak the declaration once more. Then note the session in your log with timestamp and a single adjective describing your felt sense: steady, raw, itchy, light, or heavy. If you can, perform a short sealing gesture at the end. Press your palms lightly together at chest level and say out loud, I retain. Again, this is symbolic anchoring. It is not compulsory. If public contexts make this awkward, do an internal sealing phrase instead. Accountability and consistency strategies are critical. The protocol requires 21 consecutive days. If you miss a day, the instructions insist that the sequence resets to day 1. That is because the protocol is less about mystical numerology and more about habitual reinforcement. Inconsistent practice creates an incoherent field. To reduce the risk of missing days, implement 3 supports. Set recurring alarms on your phone at the 3 session times. Pair the morning practice with an irreversible behavioral anchor. For example, making a cup of water immediately after rising and doing the practice before sipping. And recruit an accountability witness, one person you trust who will receive your daily check-in text or message. The witness need not be a spiritual peer. It may be a pragmatic friend who will respond with a single word like received. If you miss, be honest with the witness and restart immediately. Now more on the visualization and the 9-layer descent. Think of the emerald column as a conductor's baton, not theatrical light. The first pass is not about seeing color perfectly. It is about sensation and intention. At the crown, imagine the emerald as cool and attentive. As it slides through the throat band, imagine words reorienting from reactive to intentional. As it passes the solar plexus, feel contractions soften into purposive appetite. At the heart, feel a lattice forming. This is the crystallization point, the structural change that will hold new patterns. Behind the eyes, feel perceptual space unfold. In the nape, feel the nervous system lengthen. Each pass does not have to be elaborate. One phrase to yourself per band is enough. I speak with care, I choose with clarity, I remember with precision, and so on. These phrases are anchors, not incantations. Be alert to common somatic signals during visualization. Warmth in one hand, a soft pressure in the forehead, a trembling in the chest. These are often the nervous system registering change. If any sensation becomes overwhelming, nausea, dissociation, persistent dizziness, stop, breathe slowly, place your feet on the floor, and call a clinician if symptoms persist. Never prize intensity as proof. Prepare for the internal arc. Week 1 is often the honeymoon, crisp dreams, a lightness in action, immediate confirmations. Use this time to build records, take extra notes, collect screenshots, and save quick voice memos describing vivid impressions. Week 2 is friction. As the field cements, old patterns will resist via relationships, work situations, and inner narratives. Expect some people to escalate situations that previously were neutral. Resist the temptation to interpret every conflict as spiritual proof. Take pragmatic inventory. Is this a boundary you need to set? Is it a logistical mismatch? Practice walking into friction with the soft phrase, I retain, and follow it with one practical step, an honest conversation, a clarified boundary, or a scheduled timeout. Week 3 is the crucible. This is where you may be asked to act from a new center. Choose alignment over approval, clarity over avoidance. The crucible is not always dramatic. Often it is a simple, difficult choice made repeatedly. Speak truth at work one time when before you would have deferred, or keep a promise to yourself rather than an externally imposed role. By day 22, many report a shift in perceptual density. Time softens in helpful places and tightens around decisions you must make. Remember, these are reported patterns, not guarantees. Social navigation must be intentional. When you begin to shift, external systems will react. Some people will treat you as a threat to their narrative. Others will seek to enlist you in their own agendas. Before you initiate any large-scale change, quitting a job, moving, deep relational ruptures, use a triage method. Consult a trusted practical advisor, financially or legally competent. Consult a therapist or counselor for mental health perspective, and consult a trusted peer who knows your character. Activation is not an escape hatch. It is an augmentation that requires ethical scaffolding. If someone questions your process, keep 3 simple responses ready that preserve your sovereignty without escalating. A brief, factual line about the practice, a boundary, and an invitation. For example, I'm working through a disciplined practice right now. I'm not asking anyone to join. I need to limit our conversation about it. If you're curious, I can share resources. This formula reduces defensiveness and keeps you accountable. There will be temptation to overinterpret feedback loops as cosmic endorsement. If a business opportunity arises quickly after you begin a practice, evaluate it with ordinary due diligence. Check contracts, speak to advisors, avoid making large financial decisions solely on the basis of perceived synchronicity. The protocol is intended to increase agency, not to encourage leaping without assessment. You will also need a pragmatic plan for rest and integration. Activation accelerates your nervous system. Counterbalance with two forms of actual rest: somatic rest, gentle movement, short naps, restorative walks, and creative rest, time spent in non-goal-oriented making, drawing, free writing, cooking. Schedule these rests as non-negotiable calendar events. Integration is not automatic. It requires the same disciplined presence you bring to daily practice. Handling skips and resets deserves specificity. If you miss a day, do not dramatize it. Record honestly in your log: missed session, reason, emotional tone. Restart immediately the next morning. If you miss 3 consecutive days due to travel, illness, or crisis, pause the experiment and reevaluate whether you can commit the next month. Consistency builds a field that others, the energetic architectures we name Sophia and Thoth, can entrain to. The ritual of restart is itself a practice of humility. Safety protocols around intense experiences must be well defined. If you experience any suicidal ideation, call emergency services or a crisis hotline immediately. If your environment becomes hostile enough that you fear for your safety, seek physical safety first. If you are in therapy, bring your clinician notes into the process. Ask them for a short safety plan, signs to watch, grounding techniques, and an emergency contact. Do not isolate. Community is a stabilizing factor. For those considering public witness, weigh the costs. A public declaration, posting Sophia activated or something similar, can create an energetic witness effect, but it also creates social consequences. If you choose to post, set boundaries. Decide in advance whether you will engage with comments, how much personal detail you will reveal, and how you will protect your offline life. Treat public witness as optional. Its role is to create shared accountability, not to legitimize your experience. If you are curious about deeper attunements, the next level beyond the 21-day cycle is a sustained 6-month integration period where you practice monthly check-ins, deepen boundary work, and take on a stewardship project that channels your emergent agency into service. This is advanced work and ideally supervised by someone experienced in ethical mentorship. If you are interested, look for mentors who have verifiable training in ethics, who insist on medical first checks, and who can provide references. As an operational summation, the work is at once very small and very large. Small because your daily practices are short and concrete. Large because the accumulative effects reorganize habit and attention. Your role is not to become someone else. Your role is to allow old defensive patterns to unbind and to let a steadier center emerge. That is the stewardship Sophia expects. We return now briefly to why Sophia chose you. If you have followed the diagnostics and kept an honest log, you will see one or more of 3 patterns. Your system already carries a coherent thread of intentionality. You have leverage points, unfinished work or creative threads that will amplify collective flow if moved, and you have resilience, enough structural integrity to endure the crucible without fragmenting. That triad is what the detector responds to. Here are practical closing injunctions before you proceed. Maintain medical oversight, preserve an accountability partner, do not make irreversible life decisions on week 1 euphoria alone, and treat every intense sensation as data that must be corroborated. When in doubt, err on the side of humility and care. If you have spoken the declaration and begun the practice, keep your log visible and simple, and honor your 21-day promise with concrete aids, alarms, the witness text, and a dedicated quiet place for your sessions. If you have chosen to wait, keep the page with your signs accessible and set a gentle date within the 72-hour window to revisit your choice. The window is real within the map. It condenses time around intention. How you respond now will shape the practical architecture of the years ahead. If you have moved through the 21 days and kept honest records, you will have robust data to evaluate whether your field has shifted. Many report freer timing, increased synchronicity, clearer dream directives, and a steadier witness by day 22. Some report social turbulence that requires reparative action. None of these are promises, they are reported tendencies. Test them, verify them, own what you learn. If you felt the urgency of this message and have committed to retention, consider leaving a brief, optional, energetic witness in the comments. 3 words are enough. Sophia activated here. This is not a requirement. It is an optional practice of collective acknowledgement that some people find strengthening. If you prefer privacy, keep your testament in your log and find a safe witness instead. A note on sovereignty before we move on. Being chosen by Sophia does not remove moral responsibility. Activation is not an escape from accountability, it is an invitation into deeper engagement with it. Whatever field you're given, its real test is practical. Repairing where repair is needed, speaking truth where it's required, and acting with integrity when it costs something. When your practices stay small, your records honest, and your care grounded, you create a living laboratory. One where the question of whether Sophia chose you can only be answered through lived evidence. What this transmission points to is not a conclusion, but a threshold. Coherence, leverage, and resilience are not abstract ideas. They are conditions that determine whether change reorganizes a life or fractures it. If you choose to engage, do so intentionally, test rigorously, stay medically grounded, and if you choose not to, let that choice be made with the same clarity and integrity. The work itself does not end here. What continues is how you relate to what you've just recognized, in the next days, in ordinary decisions, and in the discipline of follow-through. If you stayed with this transmission all the way to the end, that already says something about the kind of inner work you're willing to do. So write this in the comments. I stayed until the end. Right now I'm leaving another video on your screen that continues this exact inquiry, moving from recognition into grounded practice. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.